In the shadowy corners of history, where superstition held more sway than reason, there are tales so chilling they seem to defy belief. Tonight, we journey back to 17th century Scotland, a time of fervent paranoia, to uncover the haunting story of Elspeth MacLeod, a woman whose fate became entwined with fear, love, and a darkness that refused to be buried. Our story begins in a small, isolated village nestled in the Scottish Highlands. Life here was hard, dictated by the changing seasons and the whims of the land. It was a place where community was everything, but also where suspicion could fester like a wound. Elspeth was known throughout the village for her knowledge of herbs and traditional remedies. She was a healer, a skill passed down through generations of women in her family. People sought her out for everything from a common cold to a difficult childbirth. She was respected, but also watched. Her knowledge, so beneficial to many, was also seen as mysterious, something not quite understood by the common folk. Elspeth was with child, expecting her first baby with her husband, Ewan, a kind-hearted blacksmith. Their love was a quiet comfort in a harsh world. They were looking forward to their new life as parents, dreaming of the future. But as the winter of 1645 deepened, a shadow fell over their village. A strange sickness began to spread, starting with the livestock and then moving to the people. It was swift and unforgiving, and no one knew its cause. The village priest, a stern man named Father Gregor, saw the devil's work in every misfortune. He preached sermons filled with fire and brimstone, warning of hidden evils living among them. Fear is a powerful and contagious thing. As the sickness claimed more lives, the villagers, desperate for an explanation, turned their fear into blame. Their eyes fell on Elspeth. Her knowledge of herbs, once a blessing, was now twisted into evidence of something sinister. Whispers started in the marketplace and grew into loud accusations in the tavern. They said she consorted with dark spirits, that her remedies were not of this world. Her pregnancy, once a sign of new life, was now rumored to be the product of an unholy union. Ewan defended his wife fiercely, but his voice was drowned out by the rising tide of hysteria. One cold evening, a mob led by Father Gregor descended upon their small cottage. They dragged Elspeth from her home, ignoring her pleas and Ewan's desperate attempts to protect her. They accused her of witchcraft, of bringing the plague upon them. She was subjected to a cruel and nonsensical trial. Any defense she offered was twisted against her. Her knowledge of healing was proof of her dark arts. Her calmness in the face of their accusations was seen as a sign of a hardened, unrepentant heart. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. She was found guilty. But her sentence was something born of pure terror and cruelty. Because she was with child, they believed a conventional execution would not suffice to cleanse the land of her supposed evil. They decreed she would be buried alive. The sentence was meant to ensure that her spirit, and the spirit of her unborn child, would be trapped in the earth, never to rise again. On a desolate hill overlooking the village, they dug a shallow grave. They forced Elspeth into the cold, dark earth, her cries for mercy echoing in the biting wind. Ewan fought like a wild man, but he was overwhelmed and restrained, forced to watch the horror unfold. They placed a wooden plank over her and began to shovel the heavy, wet soil. The last thing Elspeth saw was the grief-stricken face of her husband before the world went black. The villagers returned to their homes, convinced they had purged the evil from their midst. But what they had done was not an end. It was a beginning. 3 days passed. A chilling silence fell over the village. The sickness did not abate. In fact, it seemed to worsen. Then, the torment began. It started subtly. A disembodied whisper on the wind, a fleeting shadow at the edge of one's vision. Doors would creak open in empty houses. Objects would move on their own. The villagers who had been most vocal in Elspeth's condemnation were the first to experience it. One farmer woke to find all his tools arranged in a perfect and settling circle in his barn. The tavern owner found all his barrels had been mysteriously emptied overnight, the contents pooled on the floor. Father Gregor, the architect of Elspeth's fate, was not spared. During his sermons, his voice would fail him, replaced by a strange, guttural choking. His Bible pages would turn on their own to passages about false judgment and vengeance. He began to see a figure in the church, a spectral woman, her form hazy but her eyes burning with an otherworldly light. The phenomena grew more intense. The sound of a woman weeping could be heard coming from the hill where Elspeth was buried. At night, a ghostly lullaby would drift through the village, a song so sad it chilled the soul. Children started having nightmares of a woman trapped underground, clawing at the earth. The villagers were living in a new kind of fear, not of a hidden evil, but of a vengeful one they had created. Ewan, lost in his grief, had not left his cottage. He was immune to the strange happenings, locked away with his sorrow. But one night, he heard a soft voice calling his name. It was Elspeth's voice, not as a whisper on the wind, but clear as if she were standing right beside him. He followed the sound out of his cottage and up the hill to her grave. There, bathed in an ethereal moonlight, he saw her. She was not a terrifying specter, but a shimmering, translucent form of the woman he loved. She looked at him with eyes full of sorrow, not for herself, but for him. She reached out a hand, and though he could not feel her touch, he felt a wave of warmth pass through him. She spoke to him, telling him that her spirit was bound to this place, unable to rest. She hadn't sought revenge, the village's guilt had manifested its own torment. Their fear had created a new ghost. She told Ewan that to find peace, both for her and for the village, her story had to be told, the truth of her innocence brought to light. She asked him to leave this place of sorrow and start a new life, to live for the both of them. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, her form faded, leaving Ewan with a sense of purpose. He did as she asked. Ewan left the village that day, never to return. He journeyed far away, and wherever he went, he told the story of Elspeth MacLeod not as a witch, but as a healer, a loving wife, and an innocent victim of mass hysteria. He ensured her memory would not be defined by the lies that condemned her. Back in the village, the hauntings did not stop immediately. It took a generation for the story to change. As the old priest and the accusers passed away, their children and grandchildren began to speak of Elspeth not as a witch, but as the White Lady of the Hill, a sorrowful spirit wronged by their ancestors. The story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of fear and false judgment. They say that on quiet nights, you can still hear a soft lullaby on the wind blowing from that lonely hill, a mother's eternal song for the child she never got to hold. The story of Elspeth MacLeod serves as a powerful testament to the enduring human spirit and a chilling reminder of how easily fear can turn neighbors into monsters. It's a tale that has been whispered down through the centuries, a ghost story rooted in a very real and tragic history. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows of the past. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the forgotten corners of history. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.